Welcome to Your Future in Sales and Marketing, a podcast that helps you make great career decisions to get the most out of your career journey. We'll introduce you to the AXR network of established senior leaders and a hand-picked group of future aspiring leaders who have it all in front of them. You'll learn what it's like in the top job and how to get there. Your hosts from AXR's specialist sales and marketing recruitment team will also land bonus episodes for you on how to work with recruiters, write a resume, and smash an interview, as well as our very popular market updates. It's the podcast that has it all. You can't get this career advice anywhere else. Welcome to another episode of Your Future in Sales and Marketing. And this is another edition of our Future Leaders series, where we interview up-and-coming future leaders in Australian FMCG. I'm Andrew Cannock, a specialist sales recruiter at AXR. And today I'm delighted to be joined by James Powers. James is National Business Manager at Bobby, a fast-growing, better-for-you soft drink brand that's disrupting the beverage category. And he's also a long-time pod listener. So we're especially excited to have you on. Hi, James. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good, Andrew. Great to be here. Great to be here.
Good. So before we dive in, the question we ask everyone on the pod, what's your favorite brand and why? And it can't be one that you've worked on.
So, yeah, I really toyed with this one. So a few honourable mentions to Midday Squares and Coffee Supreme, but Leica, the dog food company, came out on top. I love a challenger brand, kind of disrupting a category. I love the subscription model. I love focus on e-com. And I love the talks to your pet. And as a recent, cavoodle dad, yeah, it's just awesome brand. Love what they've done.
I'm seeing them everywhere at the moment. And to be getting the country they are in a space that's getting as much investment and focus as pet, I think is really commendable.
Yeah, you've got some big players to compete against. And yeah, I think it just aligns with my sort of values, the startup environment and taking it to the big guys. So.
Love it. Great. So before we dive into your career journey, which I'm really excited to get into because you've got an unconventional journey compared to a lot of people that we have on the pod, which I think is great because it's something really different to talk about. Before we dive into that, tell us a bit about life before work. Where did you grow up?
So I'm an Adelaide boy. I've been in Sydney for just over 3 years, but yeah, Adelaide's where I grew up. Great part of Australia. No traffic, no tolls, the 20-minute city, great wine, great food, great people. So yeah, Adelaide boy.
Nice. And did you know from early on that you were going to go into business? Did you have that entrepreneurial kind of instinct from a young age or did it come later?
I don't think I really had the entrepreneurial streak at a young age, but my big sister had a boyfriend, Hamish McClay, and he worked at Arnott's. And as a kid, I had no idea what category was, but I just thought it was really cool. So that kind of sparked it. And then I had a work experience stint in their office in Sydney with him. And yeah, I guess that's what sort of put it on my radar. But until that, I just, had no idea what FMCG was.
Yeah, I love it. So as I touched on, you've had an unconventional pathway and it's been a broad career, but it started very much hands-on. So you were in hospitality, so bars, venues, brand ambassador roles. Tell us a bit about that chapter and then how you found your way into FMCG from there.
Yeah, so I feel like many people, I went into a commerce degree not really knowing what I wanted to do and naturally found myself bartending and loved hospitality. I've got a really deep passion for the industry. And then, from there, I kind of ended up in a role with Arnott's in the field. But as a, young, early 20s kid, I was super impatient and it just didn't really get me going in the morning, which retrospectively, I look back on it and I learned a lot. About planograms and front ends and relationships, but it just didn't click for me. And there was this cool brand called Remedy Kombucha. And I didn't really know what it was, but was starting to see it everywhere. And I saw a job ad up and I just applied for it. And then, met someone that I would consider a career mentor today, Anthony Hodgson, had an interview with him. And honestly, probably 5 weeks later, I got the call back and it was like, this is the opportunity. And it was a startup environment. It was a challenger brand. Adelaide was a super small market, but I really got to kind of take control of it and build in Cafe and Independent and MSO and PNC. And it was just genuinely so much fun. And then COVID happened.
Yeah. And so Remedy, it's a brand that, again, see everywhere these days, but you were kind of part of it when it was quite a fledgling sort of brand. What did that role look like? And I guess what did you sort of learn in that environment that's then served you later on in your career?
Yeah, I think something that I learned is that, things take a long time to happen and momentum kind of just keeps building momentum. So that was sort of a big learning from Remedy. It's really hard to build a challenger brand was another big learning. And that there's more people to kind of sell to than you ever could imagine. If you think about all the distribution points available, there's just heaps of them. So I guess mindset was really big on mindset, really good for my patience as well. Things take time and you're working with really smart people in a growing business. So great for commercial acumen, commercial intensity, and just, frame of reference, I guess.
Yeah. And so you touched on COVID happening, which was an inflection point for a lot of people career-wise because it disrupted things. So where did that then take you? Yeah,
well, COVID was interesting for Remedy, which at the time had a massive cafe footprint, which kind of died overnight, unfortunately. So their sales force, faced a pretty big redundancy, which at the time was really scary. But I look back on, as a good experience for me early in my career. And I had a really safe landing with our retail distributor in South Australia. So I went into Stag Fine Food. And my role was about sort of porting the Remedy direct business under his distribution umbrella. So, I was pretty intimidated and nervous at the time, but gave me really good experience in a breadth of different brands and categories, was able to build really good relationships with some buyers in Adelaide. And it was a good year of my life, but I definitely didn't want to kind of stay in a small business in Adelaide. So I think COVID was a bit of a wake-up call to go and set my sights on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I actually met my fiance really just before this happened. So, it was a weird time. But I said to her really early on, I was like, look, I really like getting to know you, but I'm moving to Sydney. Take that on board.
Are you on board or not? Yeah.
It's like week 2, I think. And I think she was a bit like, what is he talking about? And then a year later, had a really difficult conversation with Sam, the owner of Stag, and said, look, I've loved working here, but it's time for me to move on. And I went into Sanitarium in Adelaide.
Which is interesting because Sanitarium is one of the biggest FMCG businesses in Australia, some really big established brands, but you were working for the alternative dairy co part of the business, which was almost like working for a startup within that big business environment. What was that like?
Oh, amazing, because you're insulated from a lot of startup issues like cash flow or capital raising or production or CapEx. And you also have really established built out teams in finance and category and supply chain. So amazing experience being a startup within a big FMCG business. Really privileged to have that on my CV. And I jumped into an account management role in Adelaide and our senior business leader at the time kind of said, yep, I want to move to Sydney pretty quickly with this. And she was great, Rachel. She was amazing. And she sort of facilitated that move in under a year, which was really cool, into a strategy role in Sydney, which I don't know, it's challenging going from $0 to sort of 80 million in 3 years. There's lots of growing pains and team building, and you've got a really entrepreneurial environment. And Sanitarium, massive business, but very heavily indexed in corporate grocery, independent grocery, like a little bit in food service. And ADC, Alternative Dairy Co, was 100% food service. So really interesting mix of people came into that business with hospitality backgrounds and a deep passion for coffee. And there was always positive tension between grocery thinking and cafe thinking. But, obviously it worked because it was, took Australia by storm. And I think you go into nearly any cafe today and you'll see that red oat milk carton, which always makes me feel really cool to be a part of that story.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think anyone that works in that food service or even just alternate channel space in big FMCGs, they're very used to having to fight for resource, fight for attention. But that tension that you talk to, a little bit of it in my experience is businesses that are predominantly corporate grocery, they're very used to quite predictable outcomes. I invest this, I get that. I do this, this happens. And food service isn't like that. So what was that like, kind of managing those conversations internally?
Challenging. But food service is a intensely fragmented industry in Australia. I think you have sort of 70 to 80,000 food service venues, all of which stock, tier 1 massive FMCG brands. But the manufacturers will sort of be disintermediated by a network of distributors or suppliers or wholesalers. And the level of technology and data that they use is very different to what you have access to when you're dealing with a major supermarket like Woolies or Coles. I guess, yeah, like positive tension is a good way to describe it, but it was just working. So Sanitarium kind of was listening and really, really open to the channel.
Yeah.
And it's pretty rare to get a $0 to $80 million curve in 3 years. So
yeah, incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so you spent your time at Sanitarium and then you moved on to Ornamentum. Tell us a bit about that.
So patience is, I guess a thread in my career that hasn't fully developed. I saw Ornamentum and I kind of knew the business. We used it to scale Remedy. Ornamentum is a, I guess, B2B SaaS technology platform that helps food service distributors trade with cafes and other food service venues in Australia. So it's a payment solution. It's an online e-commerce solution. It's a kind of order management solution. So it's sort of, for a distributor, plugs into an ERP and allows a cafe to connect with someone like Sonoma and order their bread, and then someone like Mecca Coffee and order their coffee, and then someone like Better Foods and order their Remedy kombucha. All in one place. They pay with one credit card and they get it delivered to their cafe. And then those orders go into each distributor's ERP for, ship, pack, fulfillment. So great app, amazing bit of technology, and it's really helping the food service industry.
Awesome. We were talking before we started recording about bringing some FMCG thinking and like sophistication into the food service space, and that sounds like a great example of where you've been able to do that.
Yeah. Like I'm deeply passionate about it, and I think it goes back to like starting in hospitality and bars and pubs, and love the industry, and then love the commerciality that FMCG sort of brings to it. So I think it's a technology platform for good, in my opinion.
Awesome.
So
where did your impatience take you from there?
Well, I don't know if this one was impatience or I was really passionate about brand building and like the deep relationships you get out of FMCG. And one day I had a catch up with Liam Dodds, who is the national sales manager at Bobby Drinks, and fell in love with the brand. I'd followed it sort of from day one because I'm a massive beverage nerd. I love the category. I love drinks. And had a really good conversation about what Ornamentum could do for the Bobby Drinks business. And that kind of spurred into learning more about what they were doing from, next 12, 18, 24 months and what they were looking at from like a resource allocation. And then I just texted him the day after and said, love the brand. I know you're looking to put another person on.
Yeah.
I'm interested. And it kind of just snowballed from there. Met the founder, Christian, had a better conversation about their plan. And something that I love about startups is you can feel the impact you have. And I went, I can do this. I can help this business. And I'm passionate about it. I love the brand. I love the liquid. I love the high growth environment. And then I went to Europe for 4 weeks and got engaged. And but then I got back and resigned and kind of started a couple of weeks later. So really exciting. But I'd say passion over patience or impatience brought me to Bobby.
Love it. And something you spoke about there is super relevant for our listeners, because the way that we encourage people to assess career opportunities is, do you believe in what that business is trying to do? Do you believe in the leaders who are bringing that journey to life? And then can you contribute in your role to that journey? And it sounds like this was tick, tick, tick for you. So tell us a bit about Bobby. So a better for you soft drink brand. What's the vision of that business? What are you guys trying to achieve?
Yeah, so like when I look at soft drink in Australia, I see it as a spectrum. And if you've got, your conventional Coca-Cola over here, that traditional CSD market is worth sort of about $5 billion a year. And then on the other side, you've got better for you, and you might have like a organic sparkling kefir. And they kind of each appeal to different people. This side's worth, 50 million. This side's worth way more. And for me, Bobby sits in the middle with like conventional nostalgic flavor profiles, but better for you benefits. So we don't want to be the healthiest drink that you never have again. We want to be really delicious, fun, engaging, more than just a drink in a can, but have a better for you flavor profile, better for you nutritional profile.
Yeah. And the way that you contribute, so you're a national business manager there. Now that title will look very different across different businesses. Bring it to life for us. What does an NBM role look like in a business like Bobby?
Yeah, so small, lean team. So I lean into a lot of different things, but I think something that I really brought to the business was like commercial intensity, getting our reporting function dialed in and understanding where we're going, what's working, what's not. And on top of that, big picture thinking. I think it's pretty hard to imagine what $1 million a month looks like unless you've been there. And that kind of roller coaster or that hockey stick inflection point with ADC kind of showed me that, yeah, you can do this. So they're probably the top two things that I brought at a high level. But my day's pretty busy. I lean into national accounts, so Coles and Woolworths, where we're ranged in Coles Local and Woolies Metro. So, national account executive, national account manager, national business manager for that. I take care of the e-com function too. So we've got a massive and very, very fast growing Shopify channel that's under my remit. And then I'm also, I guess, the field sales manager for our field team along the East Coast. And then, a few key relationships with distribution partners.
Not your typical MBM role.
No, not your typical MBM role. I think, so I think big things would be like joint business planning. I think that's ticks. P&L accountability, that ticks. But then I lean into lots and lots of different things, which is cool. Like I love that about a 7-person team. You get the ability to touch sort of everything in the business, which is really cool. We're launching a new product. We're launching 2 new products actually at the moment, which is crazy. And one sort of mainly for the independent sector and then one into major retail, into Metro and Coles. So
yeah,
it's been fun.
Awesome. When I speak to people doing sales roles in bigger, more established businesses, I often get people saying, look, I'm really curious to do something different. I'd love to go into a scale-up environment, a startup environment, maybe even do my own thing. You spent a lot of time in these sorts of environments. For anyone that is considering making that move, what do you think they should be thinking about before doing so?
Really good question. Gosh, so much to think about. Like, I think you have to align with business goals, senior leadership team and investors to make sure that, what you're looking for is what they want to achieve. It can be really unusual in a startup environment if you go into a business that is trying to sell and you're trying to do something and that there's an exit in a year. That can be a really challenging environment. So that would be something to think about. Like, does what you want to get out of it align with what the business wants to get out of it?
Yeah.
I think it's a really good way to close gaps quickly. I think in big FMCG businesses, you can become a little bit siloed. You've got a very tight JD, whereas in startup environments, you are forced to really spread yourself. And I think that's a really good way to learn because it's a sink or swim environment where you do have support, but you do have to figure it out yourself as well. So if you're, an impatient national account executive in a big tier 1 FMCG business, but you've got really good systems and process and grounding, I think a startup environment could suit you well because you've got a good toolkit and now you'll get to go and use it. So understand where the business is going and then understand what you want to get out of it. I think they're probably 2 big things to think about.
Great. Completely agree. And it used to be the case that if you stepped out of that big tier 1 FMCG environment, it was very hard to find your way back. Where I feel like now people are a bit more accepting that because of all the experience you can gain, you've just kind of spoken to. And from a business point of view, you've been inside a lot of growing brands. What do you think are some of the things that early stage businesses get wrong or overlook when trying to scale?
I've said it before, but like commercial intensity, know your numbers. I think top line revenue can be a really exciting number to go and chase down, but often launching into 500 stores sounds great, but might not be good for you as a startup business. So know your numbers. Otherwise you can, find some really, really tough challenges really quickly.
Yeah.
So commercial intensity.
And cash flow is king, as we spoke about earlier before recording as well.
I never thought about cash flow in a strategy role at Sanitarium, not once, which maybe is my fault. But I don't think anyone apart from our finance team and, supply chain team, which were great, but sort of siloed away from our business. But it's so important. Like cash flow is the blood of your business. And if you don't have it, you will die.
And you are, in those bigger businesses, you are kind of insulated from it, particularly in those sorts of roles. But I think even if you are in those big business environments, like you have opportunities to deepen your understanding of P&L. Like spend time with finance, spend time with people that do have to make decisions around cash flow and get familiar with it because it's going to serve you really well. Even if you stay in a bigger business environment, when you get into those bigger roles, you're going to have to know what you're talking about.
I think one of the best career moves that I did was when I was in Sanitarium and went from account management into strategy. That was a cross-functional role that sort of bridged the gap between sales, marketing and category for a food service team because I think category is often overlooked in food service, but it really broadened the way I thought about, brand building and the consumer and how we're marketing and who we're talking to. So I think lateral moves early are really good. I often say I know a little bit about a lot of things and then a lot about a few things. So I think it's good to get a broad spectrum of knowledge.
Agree completely. What's next for you? Any big personal goals or business ambitions you're excited about?
So I'm getting married this year, which is really exciting. So it's a big personal goal. So that's really cool. Going off to Europe, and that'll be a lot of fun. When I was at Automentum, I missed the FMCG world a lot. So met a business partner sort of by happenstance, to be honest, and started Chew Nutrition, which is a sort of functional gummy business, which is bubbling on in the background. Big direct-to-consumer focus, and then we're sort of popping up in 400 or so retailers around the country. So that's sort of on the simmer, but growing sustainably in a bootstrap startup environment. So I think you've got to go slow to go fast sometimes. So yeah, they're probably the two big ones that are like outside of the day-to-day role at Bobby. Honestly, there's so much to do at Bobby. You know, I think that's the cool thing about a startup environment. Like, you're so small that you don't have this fully optimized business. So we can look at new channels or new partners, or, I mean, Woolworths is the big one that we're really, really excited to work with this year. Heaps to go. Heaps happening.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. Where can people go to learn more about Bobby, about Chew, and to connect with you personally?
Yeah, I'm super active on LinkedIn, live in Sydney, love catching up for a coffee. Bobby, we are in close to 3,000 stockists around the country now. If you're in Sydney, your local Harris Farm, West Metro, Coles Local, Coles will have us, and sort of around 350 cafes now. So you'll start to see us a lot more on the East Coast. If you're in Melbourne, you will have seen us everywhere already. That's the home state. So
awesome.
And yeah, Chew's very, very health focused. So you Go Vitas. We are in Harris Farm now too, which is really exciting.
Great.
You Mr. Vitamins. Yeah, check us out online.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for listening. Our purpose here at AXR is to help you make great career decisions. So if there's anything in this episode that's got you thinking about your own journey, reach out to me or one of the team, and we'll be back with another episode very soon. See you next time.
We hope you enjoyed today's podcast from AXR Recruitment and Search. We're passionate about helping you get the most out of your sales and marketing career. Keep listening as we bring you more career insights and advice from Australia's inspiring sales and marketing leaders. See you next time on Your Future in Sales and Marketing.